Happy Thursday. It is I, Karen Ceesay, with you again this weekend with the Atlanta Film Festival. Well, it's not the weekend yet. It's like the pre-weekend, but do weekends even matter nowadays? Like, is that even a thing anymore? But we have a great filmmaker. We've already been in awesome discussion, just sitting here waiting to start. So we really have a great discussion planned for you tonight. Hey, everybody all in. So we might have to call in all of our back folk, our people in the background, Kayvon, Krupa, and Justice, who are trying not to get involved in the conversation, but they know they like these topics. But just a few things like we always do at the beginning. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on with the Atlanta Film Festival. And this Saturday, live, there is Atlanta Film Society and Kodak present Coffee with Cameras. So if you want to know a little bit more information about that, go to the website, atlantafilmsociety.org. This is something that's really, really awesome. If you're on the mailing list, you got this email recently, but select Atlanta Film Society films are available early for virtual screenings. And one of them, we just lost Representative John Lewis, and as our city really deals with this loss of this person who has been there's so many stories about John Lewis. Everybody got a picture with him because he's always there. He's always out. He's always there out in the community. And his film, the documentary about his life and his service to America, to Atlanta, is in the film Good Trouble, which is now available. It premiered virtually the 4th of July weekend, but it is available. Go to the website if you want to know more about that and how to view that. I definitely recommend it. It's something that we should all watch, especially now as we all give our individual tributes to a wonderful man. Also, we've got the movie Flannery. It's about author. And look, I don't have all my information here, but I read a little bit about it earlier. Fantastic movie. So any more details, any information you want to know, go to the website. And all of your information will be there. There's, of course, always classes that are offered. So if you're looking to work on your skills, if you're looking to network, being in classes, even if it's virtual, is a great way to meet people that are also interested in what you want to do. So I highly suggest taking classes, getting involved, and finding out more about this industry and more about what you can do in it. So having said that, we've come to the end of the information section, and now we're going to get into the interview. But before we talk to writer-director Chris Bailey, we are going to take a look at his trailer for the film Curtis.
I had the ball with 5 seconds left. I knew it was on me. I made my move. I pushed past my man, then he fell out. Then I looked up at the ref. No call, no foul. 3 seconds, 2 seconds. Game.
Curtis, do you understand why you're here?
I saw things that ain't right. They had me tied down, roaches coming out of my hair, bugs coming out of my mouth, things that's evil. Boy, we had some good times together.
With writer, director, filmmaker Chris Bailey. Welcome to our live stream discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karen. And thank you to the Atlanta Film Festival. So happy to be here. The whole team, we're honored to be a part of this festival.
Awesome. Well, we start off, we like to know a little bit about you, your background. I'm seeing a shirt. I'm wondering if that is where you're from.
Yes.
Right?
Just,
Tell us a little bit about your background.
just wanted to remind you or let you know if you
Right.
didn't know.
In
But
case we
yeah, in case you forgot. So yeah, I'm from Detroit, Michigan originally. Um, uh, and how I kind of got started into film. So number one, I didn't grow up like loving or wanting to be a director, to wanting to write films. I grew up as somebody who loved basketball. I thought I was going to the NBA probably until I was like 16, and I realized like, you know, I wasn't all that good. I was good, but it was still levels that I hadn't reached yet. So um, it was around that time that I actually saw I was real obsessed with Tupac at the time. And I saw this documentary called Tupac Resurrection. I remember going to the theater, and I remember the whole time. And then he spoke about how that he wanted to later in his career maybe get into behind the camera because he thought that you could control the message a lot more. And, he wanted to get involved with storytelling. And he talked about how he wrote a screenplay when he was in jail. So anyway, as soon as the movie was over, I literally left out. I went to the bookstore and I grabbed my first screenwriting book. And so for the longest from then, it was just like a quiet hobby that I didn't tell anybody about. And it was just something that I did. And then went to college down in Chicago at DePaul University. And again, still, having no connections, knowing nobody who had ever been in the business, I didn't, step into film that way. But so I ended up graduating with a marketing degree. Is that like, I have this thing with screenwriting and I've been like really invested in and growing more and more into. And so, I want to take a step in that direction. So I ended up doing an online program at UCLA for a year as a writing program. And it was during that time, I felt like I started stepping into more of like understanding the craft more. And then I got an opportunity to go to LA to work on a film set. And I flew all the way to LA and I PA'd on a film set. And the bug just hit me. It was like, this is it. I love everything about this. Like, I don't care if, that I'm doing whatever I'm doing is, I'm at the bottom. Like, I just love being around this environment. I love the people. I love just telling stories. So that same summer, I decided to, I guess do the cliche thing and say I was moving to LA. Mm-hmm. And essentially I moved to LA and I got into a program with Film Independent called Project Involve. And Project Involve basically selects 30 different filmmakers every year, and they kind of help bridge the gap between film school and starting a career. And so for me, that was like completely game changing, right? Because I didn't go to film school per se, right? I had just written scripts, on my own, and I did the UCLA program, but I didn't go to like the formal film school. So I then found myself like in this whole class of like 29 other people who all went to, UCLA, USC, AFI, all these like amazing, talented group of filmmakers. And so I started there making my first short film. So, since then it's just been, a journey to say the least, to get to this point. So that's the Cliff Note version of.
Right. It's always the behind the scenes story. Yeah. That's the extra. But okay, so when you decided to take the online class, like about how old were you then? Like where were you in your life, your maturation process?
Yeah, I was 23, 23 at that time. Yeah, I was 23.
So you had an idea that you wanted to do this, but you weren't really driven, or, you just kind of like, well, hey, let me write this. Did you write it all when you were in school?
I did, but again, it was just kind of just something that I just did on the side. I didn't have or know anybody who was in the business, right? Detroit, especially at the time, like, it's not a film. It's a very blue collar, like, type of place. So it's like, there's not a lot of the industry that is happening there. And then, my friends, they weren't into it. Family members, they weren't really into it. So I didn't know that, like, oh, you can actually come out and make a career. I knew it, when you see, people like, you see a Spike Lee or anybody else. John Singleton. Yeah. You know that they exist, but like, it doesn't seem real, I guess. And then I met a guy when I was in school, that one of my boys, Joe Boylan, introduced me to. His name is Alex C. And he was a screenwriter out here in LA. And he was like the first person to, like, I guess, paint this picture that, hey, this is real, and this is something that you could do. So I think that was one of the big sparks that, like, even just got me to that step to taking the class and then, ultimately to moving out here.
So what was the first thing you wrote? What was it about?
I don't want to give that too much away because basically that's something that I've since revised and potentially could be a next project. So I'm ready to put that out. Yeah, but I will say that it was a period piece, and it was something that I just wrote so, like, pure from the heart. I wasn't like jaded by the business of like these expectations of, oh, you can't do that, or this is not realistic, or da da da. I just wrote it because it came from the heart, and it was a subject that I was like really interested in, and I think that came through the page, right? And I think also, to segue is just, I think that's what kind of helped me, when I say I moved out here, right? That just sounds so, like, looking back on it now, I was like, what the hell were you thinking? Like, you moved out here, you didn't.
The same thing, thousands and thousands and thousands of people before you have thought.
Right. And but I think that also, that helped me a lot. That was also, like, I think unintentionally became one of my strengths, is that when I started out and I was writing, I was doing all these things, I was coming from a place that this is just pure love for, like, what I'm doing. And I think, even from some of the film school people, I think I had like a little bit of a leg up in that sense, because, in film school, you're hit with like all these theories and all these, like, you should be doing it this way, or all these structures. And, like, I didn't have that. I had, kind of what was coming from your heart. And I had to learn the craft of it, in other ways. But I think it helped me for a really just a long time, just to stand on my own, just to be able to come from, just a pure place.
Okay, so let's talk about that pure love.
Yeah.
You got pure love. You moved out to LA, but you need like pure electricity and pure food and pure gas in a car.
Amen.
So you balance the pure love to, okay, I need to make a living here. And that's where, everyone gets jaded in Hollywood when it comes to making that hustle work so you can live there. but then how do you still feed that art and keep the art pure? How'd you do that? What was that process?
Yeah, so I could go down a list of several different jobs that I've worked.
Were you taking calls with the bus driver? You're like, I got experience.
Yeah, so, exactly. So the interesting thing is that my first job that I got here in LA, it was actually through a connection from taking a chance and flying out to here to PA. I met a guy on the film set, and he worked at Universal for Justin Lin's production company. And so, when I was decided to move out here, I kind of put my fillers out to people, just kind of give it a heads up that, hey, I'm moving out. And, at the time, I couldn't get a job like in the business, which is what I was trying to do. And I was just like, you know what, like, F it. I'm going to just go ahead. I got a little money saved up. Like, I'm going to try to figure it out as soon as I touch down. And through kind of reaching out to the guy that I met on the film set, Lou, he told me about the production company that he worked for, and he said, hey, it's not going to be glorious, but I can get you an internship. And so I started out as like an intern, just reading for that company. And then he eventually left and I took his job. So I became basically the office assistant, like kind of fast. So the funny thing is that I was back on the phone taking calls, but this time it wasn't about like,
angry parent.
Where's my son at? Or this, that, and the other. It was, where are we going to do lunch at? Do you want to do lunch at the Beverly da-da-da or da-da? And it was just like surreal. Life was like, wait, there's, that's one of those things looking back on it, you just realize just how many different worlds exist, right?
Right.
Is that like,
right.
I'm having conversations with, another assistant on the phone, and we're trying to decide where our bosses should go for lunch, and they're both in the other room. It's just like, wait.
Yeah. Okay. So how is that? Because LA can be a really alienating place for some people.
Yeah.
LA can be a place that feeds you. How was it? How did you, it sounded like you might have had a really good jump off kind of coming into LA. How do you feel? Like, do you feel like you just kind of came in and found your way?
I did. I think I had a lot of, what do they call it? Beginner's luck, right? Is that like, again, like, I wasn't in the business, all that before. Me kind of taking this leap to LA was like really the first time I had really just like completely taken that leap and delved into, the business. So, within that first year is the year I had gotten into Project Involve. Right. So I met all these like immediately, from coming from, again, Detroit and not knowing anybody hardly in the business to all of a sudden being around, some of the most talented filmmakers coming out of school, And so I was super fortunate in that part and in that way. And then, so yeah, I had a great experience coming off out of the gate at start. And then it continued for about a year or two where, I was able to get, I was able to be assistant to the producer on the movie Dope. And, that was an amazing experience, which taught me lessons that, allowed me to even apply to Making Curtis. But then I'd say probably by year 2 or 3, I hit like this wall or something that, like, we'll call it the business, right? That just all of a sudden it was like, nope. Hey, that was a good run, but hey, there's some things you got to check off the list first. Yeah, there's some other things you have to go through, and so I'd say for a good two-ish years, I was in really this alienated, like, I felt like very lonely place where I was trying to navigate like what I should do and where I should go. The program was over, and you're kind of, it is back to that. You're just making like, taking jobs to make ends meet and, doing other things like that. So, yeah. And so it happened for me a little different in that way, but it happened, right?
It happened. Okay.
Yeah.
So how much do you think your outlook or your attitude attributed to you being able to take advantage of the opportunities that came your way? You know, because a lot of people get someplace and they might get an opportunity, but they don't know how to really capitalize on that. You know, do you?
Yeah. I think I came out so focused, and I think one of the beautiful things about like the journey is that it can be very lonely at times, but when you're so interested in what you're doing, I think it adds a little padding there. And so I think coming out, I didn't have friends necessarily out here, right? So I wasn't like distracted in that way. I wasn't like in the in crowd and going to these parties and going out and even just going, the times that I did go out, I realized just quickly that like there's just a lot of people who like talking about what they do, right? Everybody like, oh, I'm this, and this, and at first it feels overwhelming. You feel a little insecure about like your place, like, in the world at that point. But then, you get this realization is that like, no, you're not doing that. You realize those people aren't doing that. Is that like the people who are actually, successful and that are working are doing just
working.
That, working. You know what I mean? They're working. And so I think, again, my attitude with just staying focused, and then also, again, just coming out like fully, but like, I didn't come out thinking that, I'm going to be this overnight success, and happen in that way. But I came out, I think part of it was that, for better, for worse, I didn't know enough, right? So I came out with this idea that like I can get to it, and I have this full belief in myself and like what I can do. And I think you got to be your own hype man. Right. It's at the end of the day, it's our hype woman. It's
hype person.
It's the thing, hype person. It's the thing that is going to, push you forward and keep you going when, everything isn't going right.
Yeah. So, okay, Hollywood has definitely changed in programming over the last couple of years in as far as diversity. Once again, another plug for the Diverse Voices class. What do you think? There's a point to where we know what the numbers are and have been in Hollywood as to who's doing what and who's in front of the camera, who's behind the camera. And we know that it's still mainly white male dominated. However, streaming has kind of allowed for there to be a larger landscape for stories being told. Do you think it's all just kind of a timing thing, or do you feel like people are interested in hearing your stories? Have they been receptive in places of pitching? Do you feel like there's still where people are trying to control the narrative of what Black stories are? Or do you feel like it's kind of open range right now?
I feel like it's all of the above, everything you just said. I think I think you have some genuinely interested like people who have been like, and I think those people who have been genuinely interested have always generally been interested in that way, genuinely interested in that way. And then you do also have the side where, you're in meetings and you're pitching to people about what you do, and you realize that like, it's kind of this unspoken thing, but you can feel that they don't really connect with it in that way. Right. I've been in, I've gotten notes before on something. This is one of my, early wake up calls, too, but I've gotten notes on things where, why does this character have to be Black? Why do these characters have to be Black? Right. And so that's the whole mind thing in itself, is like, what do you mean? Like, why do they have to be Black? You know what I mean? Like,
that's how I wrote them. Right.
Yeah, right. It's like, is there something that like these characters got to do, or I got to show you, or I got to tell you how hard it is to be black, or do all these different things to like, is that's the entertainment that you want to see, or that you think other people want to see? And so I think the good thing about what's going on right now is that at least the conversation is being had, right? And the door is opening for, the right and maybe wrong reasons. The door is opening. Right. And I think that's the part that like we just have to take full advantage of, is just making sure that like we take up space in those rooms and those doors, and, let our voices be heard. And, I think slowly but surely, like, we'll get to a better place.
Yeah. It's, we were talking prior, and I was like, okay, how am I gonna bring this in? Because we had a great conversation about the concept of mediocrity, right?
Yeah, 100%.
White men getting umpteen opportunities to just be okay. And we have to be fantastic. Like Black Panther had to be like the best movie of the year. Wonder Woman had to be, just for women, Wonder Woman had to be amazing for more women, for everybody to get more opportunities. But now, would you say that we're fighting to be able to be mediocre and still be working too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. That's one of the paradigms that's like that. It's a paradigm shift in that way for sure too. Is that we just talked about, is that like, I think, 5-7 years ago, it was, and previous before that, like we were saying, it was always like, oh, the black show, or this show, or whatever show is on, like we gotta huddle around that. And even for some people who like that might even not even be their show, but it's like you're almost like forced to like it on some level, or so I think that what's happening today is that it's beautiful, just in terms of like, you don't have to be, because like we said, there's not gonna be a Jordan Peele everywhere, right? No matter what color,
right?
Blue, purple, pink, whatever you are.
Where are these blue people that everyone speaks of? These blue and purple people that people bring up all the time. Are these Smurfs? Are they living out in the forest with Gargamel? No.
But like there's certain people that you just can't mess with. Jordan Peele, the Issa Raes, they're just people who just Donald Glover's just like, those are exceptional people, right? And I think when it's come to to black people, and other minority, it's either you have to be that or you can't get a foot in the door. It's like, wait, what?
Right. There was so much. Oh, go on. No, go on.
And that's, I think, part of like, the real work that I think we have to continue to do in Hollywood in terms of like, evening out the playing field, is that like, you got to stop looking at like, people of color to have to be this
all to all people.
So this whole like savior-esque like type of filmmaker or entertainer, is that we have to get to a place that that allows a bunch of different voices, because too also I think that kills a lot of voices, right? When you see like, for instance, I use this a lot, but like Scorsese, right? Scorsese made 2 films before he made Mean Streets, right? And like the first one, it was all right. It made some noise, Second one, it was bombed. Like nobody liked it, critically. And then he made Mean Streets. So there was an opportunity for him to grow to be there. So like, even if you're in a position, or the place that you're at right now is that you're not like, what you do right now is that you don't hit it out of the ballpark right away, is that you got to give people the opportunity to grow, and I just think about how many dreams have been killed in the process of, because you haven't allowed people to grow, right? Because there's been one, you're either this or you're not.
Yeah, I think that's what's great about streaming now is it's a much lower risk environment, you know. And they're like, oh, okay, 6 episodes. We're doing 6 episodes instead of 23 episodes back in the day, and you know, of a TV show or you know, a film can premiere on Netflix. And now, I mean, with everything changing right now, who knows how the film industry will, you know, once all the chips settle, you know, all the
it's going to be interesting.
Dust settles. Once all this happens, we'll see. But to everyone that's watching, you can ask questions at any time. We've got Krupa in the background that's, you know, facilitating all of that. So you can ask questions at any time. I do want to get into talking about your film, Curtis. And it's really about the struggle of a man with mental illness. But it seems like it's really kind of a analogy for a larger thing. And what did you want to say about this film? What was your purpose in this film, in making this?
So, I mean, I think there's a few different layers that went into me making it. But so I kind of around, you know, going back to, you know, that place that I said that I was in terms of like, where I was for a few years where it felt like career-wise things were at a real standstill for me, you know, and somebody out who's, to anybody, whatever you do, when you're chasing a dream and you're doing these things, is that like, it's a really, really disheartening thing, right? Is that like, you know, to be, yeah, exactly. And
look, rewind, say it again. It sounds so nice, you got to say it twice.
Yes. Yeah, it hurts. So it was about that time that I came upon a news article, a real old news article from like the 80s, and it was about a schizophrenic man who roamed around the streets and just talked about how great he was at basketball, right? And that he used to be like the greatest ever and all these things. And then, you know, as you go deeper into the article, it turns out he used to actually be that guy. He was like an amazing basketball player who, you know, unfortunately came down, you know, with the disease, and, you know, it was kind of stripped away from him in that way. And so he spent like literally his days just talking about it. And so at some points he would be excited to talk about it and wanted to tell everybody. And then other times he would have this real raw emotional pain of like him having this like, you know, this kind of interest in introspection of like what his life was like. Right. And so I read it and I immediately connected to it because I could see myself in it in some ways, right? Right. In terms of going after a dream and wanting to get somewhere and feeling like you're falling so short, you know, from that. And, you know, you think about all your regrets of like what you should have done, you should have, would have, could have, right? Is that like, how many times do we think about like traumatic stuff all the time, right? Now, even if it's not in the forefront of your head, it's in your back of your head playing all the time, right? And it made me think about him, and it made me think about this guy in this way. And then also just in the bigger picture, just of, man, how many people are out on the street with mental illness, right? How many people do we cast off as, oh, you got that way because you did drugs and, you know, something happened to you and and that's why you're here, right? Where it's so much of the inverse, where, you know, a lot of people, something happens to them, right? Then sometimes can trigger the disease, or it happens for people that sometimes just comes naturally on, and it's drugs that they actually use to cope with it. So anyway, amazing story. And I was like, oh, this is awesome, but I don't know what to do with it. Right. So it sat for me for about a year or so. And then I went back to it and I realized also why I was connected to it was because it was basketball, right? And again, like I said, I grew up playing basketball and I still love the game. And it was like, you know, it was something so close to me on so many different levels. And then on a another note, my grandmother had schizophrenia, and I actually didn't notice I didn't notice as a kid, right? Me and my dad would always go visit her at a psychiatric hospital, and like, you know, as a kid, it was just, oh, this is what old people act like, right? And so I didn't really have that like understanding of it until later in my life, that like, you know, there's people like my grandma that are on the street who just don't have the luxury of having like, you know, doctors and nurses to help take care of them, or medicine. So anyway, these are all like the components that went into me coming up with this story. And so from that story that I read, I then turned it into a version that felt like my own story and what I wanted to say, as a homage to not only people like Curtis, right? People dealing with mental illness, but also just that's the idea that like everybody has a story. You know what I mean? Is that and I think it was about, you know, yeah, everybody has a story, and you know, being able to like respect that and understand that people just go through certain things in life. So anyway, I was able to internalize that in some kind of way, and I ended up coming out with Curtis.
Well, I mean, you know, it seems like in the last, I don't even know, you know, what's a month, what's a year anymore. I have no idea timeline. Seems
Nobody
like in a couple of years, I know Taraji P. Henson has been really active in mental health, and mental health has been a discussion. And then now we're seeing our brother Kanye just kind of falling apart. And it's, you know, it's one of those things where, one, we don't discuss mental health. We all have family members that, you know, we just kind of go, oh, well, that's this, they just crazy, they just this, they just that. But, you know, we really need to take a moment and reassess how we look at and how we view and how we treat people with mental illness. So how do you think, having done this film and having a certain level of empathy, you know, there's people that feel some kind of way with how Kanye is acting right now.
Yeah.
How much do you blame on what is obviously some type of illness, and maybe some things that were just kind of there? If we're talking about, you know, people have said, you know, he's anti-Black, he's, you know, misogynistic or whatever. Can we really say that's mental illness? Or, I mean, I know you're not a doctor,
right? right. No, but yeah, no, that's a great point. I think that no matter what side you're on, right? Whether you think that, you know, you don't care about if he's going through something, and these are things that are really him, or you think that, you know, on the other side of the coin. I think having done the film, one of the things that I wanted to communicate in the film was, I think we have to understand how to be gentle with people in terms of our understanding of what's happening and why they're reacting and doing these things, right? Like, you know, the older that I get, and you know, you go through life and you realize that, like, man, life can really fuck people up, you know, and you don't know the story. And I think I think we should make sure we have those conversations too, right? So I think, you know, you can still make sure you slam down like any ignorant statements that, like, you know, you feel like he's making or whoever's making. I think you can make sure you state your point, but then also, you know, just like Curtis, right? The movie is that, like, just understand that, like, there's layers to like what people are going through, right? With, you know, I know everybody hasn't seen the movie, but just based off the trailer, you see, we've all seen a Curtis out there, right? We've all seen somebody who's been outside of the store telling you, I'm the greatest there ever was, and da-da-da, and we kind of ignore them, right? You're crazy. We go by that. But like, I think one of the interesting things about Curtis is that like, we aren't ignoring him. We're following him, and we're actually seeing that, hey, there's layers and there's stuff going on behind that. And I think once you're able to like at least try to make an attempt to connect in that way and understand that, like, you know, that there has to be a space for people to be able to be able to heal. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, in Kanye's situation, you know, he's in the limelight, right? He's a public figure. So it's such a unique like thing, right? I think. So it's hard to like say like how much you be gentle with him or how, you know, and whatnot. But like, I think, you know, obviously, I think we all know that something's going on there, you know, whatever like you think is like the motives, something's going on there.
Yeah, and I don't like getting all, I've never been all into the Kardashians, but everybody's like, Kim need to leave him. I'm like, it's 6 or 7 help. Like, he's slamming the fam, but you know, brother needs some help. But so let's talk about the shooting process with you know, with your actors, and how did you relay and convey what they needed to know, especially your lead for Curtis. How did you all work through that process?
So it was, to be honest, it wasn't a difficult process at all. It was so like everybody, the whole entire cast, it was so easy to work with everybody. You know, one thing is the whole reason, Dwight Henry, who played the lead of Curtis, he did such an amazing job. And he's one of those people who, so he's not have you seen Beasts of a Southern Wild?
Yes, forever ago. Right?
Yeah. So he was the father in that, right?
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And that was his first acting experience, right? So the real cool thing just about him as an actor is that like he's not like trained in that way, and so he had this like rawness to him that like he brought to the table just naturally. Right. That he like.
Did you guys connect over that? The fact that neither one of you were classically trained, but still making.
Yeah, we did. And it was and we both talked about like just really being a student of life, right? It's just being the ability to observe, right? He's never been a Curtis, but he's grown up and seen those people around him his entire life, right? And just being able to pay attention and like understand that. And I saw that, like he understood that from his audition tape, right? Mm-hmm. Like out of all the audition tapes we got, you know, when he did his, like I just stopped. It was like, that's him. I had no more question. I was like, that's him. Because, you know, other people that we were getting in, you know, I think people were playing it as great of a job as they did, they were playing it kind of like one note, where it was this kind of like this woe is me thing, right? And for me, it was like, you know, when you see people like that, you know, it's not necessarily that all the time. You know, some people, like, you know, you catch them at a certain time and they've got a certain type of energy. Yeah, and they're super engaging. They're storytellers. They're all these like different things. And, you know, what Dwight had was he could do best of both worlds with doing that. So I think with us, it was a really interesting and cool, or a fairly easy process in terms of like gelling and getting on the right page. I think like for the most part, it was kind of like, you know, if he was going a little bit too far right, it was, you know, hey, come over here to the, you know, middle a little bit, and so yeah, it was beautiful working with him. I love working with him. His energy was great the entire time, and it was great.
And you had a lot of young actors too. Love to see a lot of young brothers.
Yeah.
how did that audition process go? Like, were they all actors, or were they kids that just kind of heard about it?
Yeah. So Dre, the character Dre, who you know, goes on this journey with Curtis. He's played by Alex Henderson, and Alex is such a special talent. First time I saw him was in Creed. He played the younger Michael B. Jordan in the detention fight scene, right?
Okay.
And I remember seeing this scene that he did with Felicia Rashad, and it was just like him and Felicia Rashad. And I'm looking at this, he was probably like at the time 10 or something, and I'm like, this little kid is going like toe to toe with Felicia Rashad right now.
Does he don't know Claire? He don't know Claire.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, I saw that and I was like, man, this kid can do anything. You know what I mean? Like, and so he was more of a trained actor. And so I think his energy bouncing off of Dwight's energy was so beautiful, right? Is that both of each other could like catch each other in different spaces, and he was able to like, you know, really be true to himself, which is I wanted him to be, is like really be true to himself. Be, you know, what is it like to be a kid outside, summertime, playing basketball in the neighborhood, and like you have to hold your own and all that, yeah. And so as far as the rest of the kids, those were all cast straight out of local high schools in Detroit. These were all like, you know, real life, you know, kids who played on the basketball team, who are high schoolers who did a phenomenal job, and I think represented the city so well. Because I shot in Detroit, it was all shot in Detroit, and they represented the city so well, and you know, they did a great job. So really, I'd say aside from Dwight, Henry, Alex Henderson, and Thaddeus Street, who plays in the HBO's The Deuce, everybody else was cast locally.
Okay. Now, what would look?
I don't know if you saw.
It would be like, hey, I'm gonna be in your film. Hey,
no, I think you. So you know the three guys who you're sitting on the bench with them, right? Who are talking.
Yeah.
Well, one of them is the guy who's talking the most. That's him.
See, he's like, no, this is my nephew. I'm about to know. Okay, right. So, we are burning through time. I looked and it was like 7:25, and now we like almost at the end. But we do have some questions and everything. So, do you feel like you have to put out films that people want to see, so more people will watch it? Like now that you got a featured film in the Atlanta Film Festival, what's your consciousness on that? Are you focusing on what you want to make, the story you want to tell? Or are you focusing on, okay, what kind of story that I can tell that can, you know, sell? Right?
Yeah, I think that's the scary thing, is that like I'm in between that space right now and trying to figure out how to juggle that, right? Is that like, so since making Curtis, I was able to get representation, and like part of that coming into, you know, being having representation is that you realize this thing is a business. Right, and you understand that, and even more so. And so I think I'm trying to get back to, again, that kind of pure place that, you know, we talked about, like, you know, how I came in, of like kind of coming from the heart. And I think that comes first, is coming from the heart, and then okay, taking the lessons and those tools and those things that I've picked up along the journey, right? Even after having made Curtis and those things, and, you know, maybe incorporating some things in that way. But I think for me, in every film I do and anything I do, I want to make sure that like it's still me in there, you know? And so I think that's always a place that like I have to start from, as far as like creating and like getting anything done. So I don't know if I answered that question, but like it's
we all want to be artists, but
yeah.
We all got bills to pay.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
Right. You have any advice when it comes to shopping scripts? You said you got representation now. How was the process before, and now how is the process now that you have representation?
it's night and day. I'd say night and day in the sense that, you know, you literally have people who are vouching for you, right? Who have people who, you know, are behind you and can get you in these rooms and get you in these meetings and can even give you advice just, you know, career wise of like, you know, how to navigate like this weird business. Right. And so the question was, is an advice as far as like shopping scripts?
Right. How can this person get to getting representation? How, you know, how is the process for shopping scripts, and then how does this person get to where? Because we do all want representation.
Yeah,
I mean, ultimately.
Yeah, right. There's so many different routes. I'd say for me, it's always just came from me getting the ball rolling and making something, right? Like even Curtis, I didn't wait for, you know, some big production company or to give me their blessing or to do all these things that like, you know, traditionally would need to happen. And I just said, you know what, I'm gonna take a chance on myself. I'm gonna bet on myself. And I think the best advice that I can give to you is just bet on yourself, right? Whether that's you're saying you're shopping your script around, but if there's other producers, there's other people that you know can actually make this or make some work that might get the attention of somebody, you know, who may be an agent or manager who may be in that position. I think for me, that's always just been a route, is just to like make sure you bet on yourself, and you know you can, you know, try to make your connections and network and do all these things. But at the end of the day, is that all people pay attention to is if you make some noise, right? And you can't make noise just not doing anything, but just reaching out and sending emails or calling. You just figure out a way to do it, even if it's, you know, if you wanted a bigger budget or you wanted something on a larger scale, is that like, you know, that might not be that right now, and that you could do something else though. So I think it's just the idea, you know, to sum it all up, is just to bet on yourself and to, you know, try to do everything that you can to put you in the process as far as making work.
See, I had another question, but that's like an end point. Like that's like a nice little, you know, okay, we got 4 minutes. With this one, John had a thank you. Someone named John said, "Thank you, my brother. You inspired me so much." And I think those are great words, what you're saying. This is an independent filmmaker, you know, independent oriented film festival. And that is what this is all about. People out there going, doing it themselves, getting it out there. And that's why Atlanta Film Festival is here. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, on Facebook. If you're watching us on Instagram, this is, I think, our 3rd week of Instagram, which is awesome. You can follow me too, Karen Ceesay, on Instagram.
I'll make sure I follow you too.
Chris, what's your Instagram? Or
Mr. _ C Bailey.
Okay, all right, not too difficult. There we go. One last thing, I really want to know, what are you doing to make sure that young brothers are seeing you doing what you're doing? So some other brothers from Detroit, somebody from Chicago, somebody from Memphis can see that Black men are out here making films. What are you doing? What do you want to do for that?
In terms of what, like?
Just, I don't know, whatever type of reach out or you know, how do you think you can make sure that young people know that you exist?
Right.
You know, doing your thing.
Yeah, I think, I mean, honestly, through working with, you know, organizations and people like you guys, like the Atlanta Film Festival, is just, you know, continuing to partner and work with people who maybe have a bigger platform than I do, that can actually have longer reaches, right? Whether it's like physically of like, hey, you know, finding, you know, a screenwriter somewhere or producer somewhere that I didn't know about that I might be able to work with, you know, in another on another project. And then really, and in my own making films, and what I do is just continue to like not work with the obvious in terms of like the easy picks, is making sure that like you're giving people chances to do things. And I think for Curtis, that was one of the most rewarding parts about it, is that like the whole group of us were just people who were really hungry to make a film, right? We were really hungry, is that, you know, everybody didn't have all the accolades and all that, but like we wanted to do something special. So I want to continue doing that. So, you know, doing what I can in terms of when I have work is to be able to, you know, just expand my network wherever I go. So if I come to Atlanta, you know, I'm gonna hit you up. I'm gonna hit you guys up and say, hey, give me, give me some people, you know, who I'm looking for. So.
Well, you know, we got some great tax incentives. And, you know, once again, the film festival has been postponed to September. Right now, it's still on. Everyone out there, wear your mask. I'm not supposed to make political comments, and apparently wearing a mask is political. It's not. Wear a mask. Be safe out there.
That's science.
We're here every Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Thank you so much, Chris, for taking this time talking with us. The film is Curtis. We got Chris Bailey, the writer and director, whose film will be showing in September. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Karen.
All right. And thank you for watching us tonight. Again, next week, 7 o'clock. See you then.